Okay, so today I've got a Spyderco. A lot of folks have been asking for Spyderco reviews here. And this is the medium stone. It's brand new, I haven't opened it yet. And so today I'm actually just gonna test it out. I wanna do a series on Spyderco. As a matter of fact, I have all three of the stones here. Okay, so see, I don't know which one exactly is the fine and ultra fine. I'll find out. I think the blue one is the ultra fine. But today is going to be the Spyderco medium. And so I'm going to do a series where I will sharpen maybe 2 or 3 knives on each stone. And hopefully by the end of the 2 weeks or so, I will be able to give you a final kind of comparison and assessment of my opinions of these stones. But today is just a medium stone, and I've got here a shun. You can see here that it's actually very dull. It's one of the knives I've got recently from the folks over at Cutlery and More. If you guys haven't seen that video, go to the video that was posted like 2 days ago, or I'll post it in the video description or in a card here. You'll see what I'm talking about. A very interesting thing, these stones, according to the directions back here, they don't require any water or lubrication or any oils. I've got water here just to be safe. I also have honing oil or sharpening oil, which I will use if I don't like the way the water feels. But today, I'll try the stone without any water for a few minutes and see how I feel about it. Then I'll throw some water on it and see how it actually works. If water works any better or if oil works any better. Okay, here we go. All right, so we've got a little base and a case here with some rubber legs or silicone legs, which is kind of cute. It won't be useful for this video because I've got my own base here and in my pond. All right, so this is their bench stone. These are tiny. They're very small, very narrow. It's about what, maybe 2¼ inches wide and 8 inches long. So a tiny, cute little stone, very portable. Looks like it's very flat, very nicely machined. Okay, so what I'm gonna do now, again, this is gonna be a long video. Sorry guys, for those who like short videos, I'm going back to the long video format. I hate editing, so if you guys don't like it, I'm sorry. But for my sharpening videos, I'm going to be doing full formats, full talks. You guys will see pretty much everything that I'm going to do. And then my conclusion video will be a little bit shorter. Okay, that'll be edited with some overlapping, whatever, some B-roll. But in terms of actual sharpening videos, you're going to see mostly everything that I'm doing here today. I'm going to try a couple of different things here. I'll try the sharpening stone without any water, and then I will do I'll add some water to it, see how it actually feels. In terms of technique, this knife here, this is a Shun Classic, and it's got a very, very obvious radius to the cutting edge. So I'm actually gonna go with a maybe single stroke method and see how I do, and then go with the double pull where it's a crescent method where I go back and forth from the tip to the heel, and then see how that feels as well. All right, let's do this. You've got to be kidding me. The neighbors' gardeners have just showed up right when I'm filming. Can you hear it? This happens all the time. All the time. Okay, so right now I'm just testing different strokes and see how it feels. I'll do the push and pull, do the crescent, and see which one actually feels better. But it's interesting. Sorry guys, it's distracting to me as well. That out of sight. All right, so oddly enough, the stone actually works, or at least it feels decent without water. I'm gonna try to throw some water on it. You see here that water actually soaks into the stone. And according to the manual, well, not the manual, the instructions, this is an open cell whetstone, so it will absorb water, it will absorb dirt, which you're actually seeing there is load up happening on the stone. And water is still absorbing into the stone fairly quickly right now. Interesting. Now this is something I normally do in the very beginning when I first get a stone, but according to the instructions, you don't need water, so that's why I, went with the initial sharpening without any water. But it is absorbing a fair amount of water. You can see right here. The water is okay, and now we have no more water on the stone. Yeah, so this is a very interesting stone. It does absorb water, but it seems to work fairly well without water. Okay, well, let's just get on with it. Yeah, you know what? As I'm sharpening and as the water is dissipating or being absorbed into the stone actually changes in terms of how it feels. That was interesting. Yeah, I like the stone with water. So I'll keep, right now the water is absorbing slowly. I'll keep sharpening until all the water's gone, and you can probably even hear the sound change. Yeah, you see it right now? A bit higher pitch up here. A bit lower pitch where there is still a bit of water. Yeah. Yeah, listen to this real quickly. Yeah, so towards the bottom of the stone where it's completely dry, it sounds much coarser and rougher. But up here where there is still a bit of water, it's much smoother and easier on the ears. Okay, so I'm just getting a burr right now. And also, for those who are wondering, when I'm working on the tip of the knife, I always go to the very edges and the corners of the stone, because those are the areas that you typically would miss in a typical sharpening session. And so if I can, or when I can, I will focus my sharpening on the tip, on the edges, to keep the stone relatively flat over time. And also notice, because this is a very rounded belly and the radius goes all the way to the cutting, to the tip, I'm actually allowing the tip to actually be rocked from the belly to the tip. That way you keep that nice radius on the cutting edge. think we have a, a very nice, even, very minor burr, a little nice micro burr. So we'll just flip this around. And you don't have to turn the stone around. I do it out of habit so I can distribute wear evenly across the stone. All right, so now we're going to the left side. I'm gonna apply some water. All right, so notice I'm taking very small strokes, and when sharpening a new stone, I like to take very small strokes and short strokes. It really allows me to kind of focus in certain areas, and also because this stone is very narrow and relatively short, you don't want to take really broad strokes. And if you have a lot of muscle memories from sharpening larger whetstones, there is a chance of you rolling off the stone, and it will certainly ruin your edge. And so, when you're getting a new stone, it's a good habit to kind of take really short strokes, and so you can kind of get used to how the stone feels. Especially, I don't know how the stone will react with water versus oil, which I'll put on later on. But yeah, just getting used to the stone. It's good to take smaller strokes or shorter strokes, and it also helps you isolate certain areas of the knife. Okay. Okay, so now the stone is no longer absorbing the water, or absorbing very slowly, and you're getting a slight buildup of slur here. Very minor, and it's mostly probably metal shavings from the knife. And there's actually quite a bit of metal debris coming off that is very obvious that it came off the knife's cutting edge. All right. All right, I'm gonna grab an old piece of leather. This is a a rough buffalo, or I'm calling it the rough buffalo, but it's a piece of hide that I've kind of just laying around. I got a few of these laying around, and I'm grabbing this because I'm just trying to find out different ways to actually deburr your knife, and I think leather might be a really good option, especially like an old belt that you got laying around. So I'm gonna fold this in half and see how it feels. All right, let's grab some paper. Okay. Very clean edge. Very satisfactory. Yeah, even completely horizontal. From edge to edge. Okay. I need a trash bin. All right, so initial conclusion time. Let's talk about a few things. All right, first off, this is the Shun Classic VG Max, I believe. Yes, this is the VG Max, which is the newer version of VG10. I will post a video hopefully in the next maybe a couple weeks, and we'll talk about VG Max and VG10 for those who are curious. Okay, on the stone, this is my first time using the stone, and I have to kind of make that very obvious. I've never used the stone before. I haven't done any reading or research on this stone, so I don't really know anything about it. I just know that it's a ceramic based stone. According to the manual, it's an open grain stone, and so they tend to load up over time relative to the ultra and the fine stones, which are closed grain, and so or closed structure. From a feedback standpoint, there were a couple of things that really stood out. So I was actually surprised. Even though I used the stone first in the dry mode, it actually felt decent. It didn't feel like a typical Japanese whetstone, where if you use a soaking stone or even a splash and go without water, it's not very comfortable. And so this formula they got for the stone actually does work decently. So I can see the stone being used in the field, like if you're a hunter, if you're a bushcraftman and you're like just out in the field and you don't have water accessible and you don't want to throw water onto your stone, this actually seems to work fairly well. It did feel better with the water though, so I will say that even though you can use it without water, it does feel better with water. The stone feels a bit softer with water, and I felt like there was just a bit more control. I feel like the stone kind of comes alive with water. It does absorb a little bit of water, not a whole lot though, so I wouldn't even classify this as a soaking stone, though I'm sure you can soak it, and I don't think water will damage it at all. And if you really want to soak it, you can probably just soak it for like 10-20 seconds. I think that's probably enough for the stone. So even though it is technically a non-soaking stone with water or oil, it does work a little bit better, in my opinion, with water. So in terms of burr development, I actually like how the burr developed on this knife. It was very even and it was very micro. So the burrs, sometimes when you're sharpening on stones that are medium grit stones, say a Japanese 1000 grit stone, various stones, the burr development may be very obvious and sometimes even a bit more aggressive than you would like it. As long as you're using the stone and allowing the tip and the heel and the areas between the tip and the heel to be sharpened relatively evenly, you'll have very nice burr development. And this stone here really proves that. And so I really like the burr development on the stone. It was not aggressive, and this is only a 61 Rockwell knife. Typically knives in the 60-61 Rockwell, especially VG10 or even VG Max, sometimes their burr development tends to be a little bit uneven and a bit coarse and aggressive. That was actually not the case with this knife at all. I would say it's probably equivalent to a 1000-ish, Japanese whetstone. It's probably very close, maybe give or take a couple of hundred grit. But overall, I think it's actually a pretty good stone. My only couple of gripes about the way this stone feels is that because it is narrow and it is short, or it's narrower and shorter than what I'm used to, I had to kind of readjust my way of standing and my way of distributing weight onto the knife. On a stone that's 3 inches wide and 9-10 inches long, you have a lot more room to play around, a lot more real estate to kind of shuffle and also to kind of mess up with. With a stone this narrow, you really have to be more focused, which is actually a good thing because it forces you to really use a narrow path on the stone. I would say in terms of the actual finish quality is up there with any decent Japanese 1000 grit stone. You can see from the cut test, it was actually very clean, very nice. Matter of fact, yeah, and there's no stropping. I simply pulled it on the piece of leather afterwards. So very, very clean edge from edge to edge. Push cut. Horizontal push cut. Oh. I remember to clean up after I do these things because when I don't, there's just paper all over the floor. Okay. Yeah, so the overall result I'm actually very happy with. Now, I chose a knife that had no damage on it. So this was just basically a used dull knife. And I think a dull knife is perfect for the stone. I wouldn't, maybe I would try at some point once I'm very comfortable with the stone, and I would try to put a knife with actually like a nick in it and see if I can repair the knife. I don't think I can, mainly because the burr development was relatively fine, and it's not a slow stone by any means, but if I'm trying to repair it's very different than, getting a burr on a knife is very different than trying to remove a 1 or 2 millimeter nick on it. So even though I think the overall speed is very acceptable for this sort of a stone, I don't think I'll be comfortable trying to repair a knife on it. But I want to know what you guys think. If you guys want to see different knives on this stone, I've got a lot of knives behind me, as you can tell. If you guys want to see some of the higher Rockwell knives on this stone, let me know in the comments, and I'll see what I can do. In terms of flatness, this stone looks like it's going to remain flat for a very long time. There was very little slur that came off the stone during sharpening. I'm guessing this can probably last at least 2 or 3 dozen sharpenings without having to worry about flattening. But I want to hear what you guys think. If you guys actually have the stone, have you guys flattened it? How many times have you used it before you actually felt like it needed flattening, if ever? But I think, due to the density of the stone, I think a good quality Atoma diamond plate would be appropriate for this sort of a stone. The milling quality of the stone is really nice, very smooth. It is a perfectly milled stone. I think from a technical standpoint, it is it is really nice. For the next 2 or 3 videos for this stone, I'll throw some different knives on it and see how I feel about them. But so far on a Rockwell of 6061 Japanese knife, using the push and pull and the crescent method and the single pull, I think it actually felt really nice. Oh, a quick thing about different sharpening methods that I've used. I use the push and pull, the single stroke, and the crescent method. In terms of which one I was actually most comfortable with on this stone, I was most comfortable using the single pull. The single pull was the easiest because of the real estate of the stone. It's very narrow. I did use the push and pull and it felt fine. But with the push and pull on a stone this size, I was more comfortable doing much shorter strokes with the push and pull. So you basically just have to choose your favorite strokes. And for me, it's all about alternating and kind of figuring out which stroke works the best per stone with the knife. There's no one formula that would say you should use this stroke for this stone or this stroke for this knife versus another. So I'm always adjusting my sharpening technique based on the knife that I'm using and the stones that I'm using. So in this case here, the stroke that felt the best was the single pull method from heel to tip, and second followed by the push and pull. The crescent method, I was able to actually, sharpen with the crescent method, but because of the width or the narrowness of the stone, it wasn't the most comfortable. A couple of times I did roll the edge, so I admit that. I do make mistakes sometimes, but I did roll the edge like maybe twice. And that's because I was just kind of getting used to it and learning the stone a little bit. But it's all about experimenting. It's all about learning. Tactile feedback is very immediate. That's something that's very obvious when you go into the stone. I love feedback, don't get me wrong. Feedback to me is very, very important. But when feedback is so aggressive and so immediate, it can kind of throw you off and also almost take away the pleasure of sharpening a knife. So to me, adding water made it more pleasurable to sharpen on. And for those who actually have these stones, let me know what you guys think, because I can obviously, my opinion is not the end all be all, but to me, I think water made the stone felt a little bit more manageable and a little bit more better to sharpen on. But it certainly can work very well, and it certainly does work very well without water. So don't get me wrong there. I think this stone is, I think the way Spyderco have formulated this stone is actually pretty incredible, that you can actually use a stone without water, and it actually felt quite nice without water. And the fact that you can have a stone that can be used in the field, I think is actually a big bonus for those who are hunting. And so for the remaining month of May, it'll be all Spyderco. So hopefully you guys enjoy this format where I really focus on a topic or a series of products in one lineup for the month, or for, you know, for at least 2 or 3 weeks or so. So, all right, guys, let me know what you guys think, and I'll catch you guys in the next video. I need to find room for my knives at work, or my knives in progress on this wall somewhere.